Fine Gael TD for Meath East. She was also appointed party chief whip by Enda Kenny after last year's election. She's been in the papers a lot since the start of 2017, and she's here tonight to put the record straight on pylons, Sinn Féin and the Taoiseach. Will you please welcome Regina Doherty? Hi, Regina. See you. Thanks for coming in. Do you get a chance to watch Dancing with the Stars?
Religiously. And actually, I had never, ever watched an episode when it was on the UK version.
Yeah.
But we sit down after the dinner on a Sunday now every week and watch it, and it's deadly.
It's great family entertainment.
It's great, it's class.
How many children do you have?
We have 4.
And what age are they?
Jack is 17, Grace is 15, Ryan is 12, and Kate is 10.
Right. You have your hands full there.
No, they're great.
Yeah. You're sort of a true blue Fine Gaeler. It's in your genes.
Yep.
Your parents were active members of the Fine Gael party.
Very much are active. Where the Fine Gael bit came from was from my nanny on my dad's side. Evie Dalton was her name. And she would have been a great supporter of Eamon Rooney and then Mark Clinton. And so that's how my dad got involved. There was a good few in my dad's family, and they were shimmying up and down poles when they were young, putting up posters and dropping leaflets and stuff. So that was where it came about. And then when Mammy met Daddy, you just kind of went with the flow. So.
Right. So you're chief whip.
Yes.
Now, what does that entail?
Do you know, I had to tell you, when I got the job, first of all, I hadn't a clue.
Right.
So it was a bit strange. And all I knew from the previous 5 years that you did what Paul Keogh told you to do. You showed up when you were supposed to be there. You did your briefings and legislation and stuff. So when the Taoiseach asked me to do the job, I had to go very quickly and find out what it really entailed. And it couldn't have just been that simple. But also something had happened that on the 10th of March, we set up this Dáil Reform Committee, which was populated by all parties, so TDs from every party, and we had made a lorry load of changes between March and May when the government was formed to remove the power that existed with the government controlling the Parliament and what we did on a daily basis to actually the people in the Dáil controlling what we did on a daily basis. So we set up a Dáil committee called the Business Committee, and we run now the House every week. And there's a whip from every single party. So there's 8 political groupings, and we meet on a weekly basis, and we decide what we're going to do, as opposed to somebody coming in and telling us what we're going to do.
Well, what do you do? What do you have to do?
But the chief job that I have is to ensure that the government passes its legislation. So the programme for government has nearly 600 action items in it that result in legislation being drafted, and it's my job to make sure that it gets into the Dáil, out of the Dáil, into committee, back to the Shannon, back to the Dáil, and that as many people as I need to pass it, passes it.
So you have to make sure that people literally toe the party line?
Most of the time, yeah.
Right. And of course, because there's so few Fine Gael TDs, you have to make sure that other people toe the party line now as well.
Again, it's not about towing. Like the nice new thing about politics is that, and this should have been the way it always was, is that there's no one party has a monopoly on wisdom. So even though one party or the government might bring forward a piece of legislation, the ideas that other people have to make it better are something that we should all listen to. Now, you mightn't agree with some things and you'll argue and debate, and that's what we do either in the Dáil or in the committees. But there are other people who have great ideas, and so why wouldn't you take them and put them into the legislation and make the legislation better? And so that's the way it works now. So you have to kind of go in court. There are only 57 votes that I can be guaranteed of, assuming that everybody is there. That's not enough to pass legislation. So you have to go in court and sell your ideas to other parties.
So who would you be courting to? Who would you be courting?
Well, I'd court anybody.
Right, okay.
In the main, I would go to kind of like-minded parties. So obviously we would have weekly negotiations between ministers and people within Fianna Fáil to see if we could come to some sort of a common ground to get legislation passed. But my dealings, and ministers would do that, so I don't do that. But where I would was that I would interact with members of the Rural Alliance, Stephen Donnelly up until this week,
yes.
The Green Party, the Social Democrats, the Independents for Change. And regularly I speak to Sinn Féin and the Labour Party looking for pairs to allow ministers to go away and do their business.
So pairing is when somebody's not going to be in the House,
yeah,
and
it's to match an opposition TD with a government TD, so they kind of cancel each other out if there's a vote. So
right, so it's logistics.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
I read somewhere when you became a TD, you said it's not a tough job, but the hours are long.
Yeah.
So
people, and they say to me now again, it's a really hard job. And actually, people say to me now that I have the hardest job in Leinster House. I don't actually. It is the most fascinating job I have ever had, and it's not tough. It's long.
Right.
So I'm not.
So what's your average day then?
So if we have 4 kids, so we get up early. Declan leaves the house just after 7, and I do the morning shift. So I do the shouting and the getting the breakfast and making the lunches and brushing ponytails and stuff and bring people out. And we only have one child now that needs to be brought to school. The other 3 are in secondary school. So I bring her to school. And you'd start my clinics kind of in the schoolyard in the morning because there's a whole load of mammies and we're all, you know, and you do the stuff and people will come to me with different issues and we start talking there. And then I go to work. And Declan does the evening shift with the kids because I don't get home on a weeknight till probably 11 o'clock, maybe 12 o'clock, depending on the schedule. But most of the evenings we would, if I wasn't in school, I'd have meetings. Yeah, but that's...
And I believe you have a date night. What night's that?
We do. It was on a Wednesday, when we used to have a vote on a Wednesday night. So the vote would be at 9 o'clock. And sure, as soon as I'd be finished voting, you'd leg it out and go home. And it'd be like a half day. All the kids would be in bed. And myself,
a half day? You get home at what time?
Well, should we get home by 9:45? And that like literally is a half day. So, because normally you're coming home by 12 o'clock and people are in bed and you kind of come into a house that's all the lights are off. And so Wednesday nights was, you know...
Was that a glass of wine and a chat?
Or maybe 2. You know.
Right, OK. Yeah. Why do you think the Taoiseach chose you as his chief whip?
Probably because I'm a mouth and I get on with most people. I'm not genuinely an argumentative person, and I would probably try and find a compromise to something rather than have a row with you. Right. I'm quite soft, but I think it's probably because I'm a mouth, to be honest with you. So. Right,
which brings us nicely on. You've had a busy January, haven't you? You've been involved in a number of controversies.
Well, I wouldn't exactly call them all controversy. So.
Well, say let's go back to Sunday, January the 8th. Right, people woke up to the Sunday Independent and there was a headline, Chief Whip, which is you, in shock offer to Sinn Féin. Now,
but there was no offer. And
actually, how do you feel? How do you think your colleagues felt
they
waking
were
up?
Devastated, as was I.
And was your phone alive?
Yes, and
who was the
not
first
very
message
pleasant
from?
Stuff. Was some of my family, first of all, like, and what the hell, have you gone nuts or what's, you know? Because I have probably been the most vocal anti-Sinn Féin Fine Gael TD in the last government for the last 5 or 6 years, and not just because of legacy issues, because they do need to be dealt with, but because of current issues, because of how they've treated people over the last number of years, the Quinn family, Maria Cahill, Paddy McGann. Like, these are real current live things that are going on, and they've treated people despicably. And then you come to their policies, which are, they would ruin the country, you know, with respect. So, OK, what I did say, and what's a bit unfair, is that when you give an interview, and that's why I think I like radio, because it can't be misconstrued. You can hear the question you were asked beforehand, and you can hear the answer you gave afterwards.
And live television.
Well, obviously, I've never done this before, so it's new to me, right? But, so, OK, what he asked me was, and he's a gorgeous young fella, so it's not having a dig at him or anything. He asked me, would Sinn Féin, or would Fine Gael ever go into coalition with Sinn Féin? And my immediate response was that I don't get to make that decision. That's well above my pay grade, you know. So, and we're a big party, and people have different views. Then he asked me, would I go into coalition with Fine Gael? And again, I said to him that that isn't my choice. We make those decisions as a party. But I said, let me tell you, I said, there are some really good people within Sinn Féin. There are intelligent, well-meaning, good performers, like media performers. They're smart debaters. And that's actually one thing I genuinely won't apologise for, because there are some people who think, you know, Fine Gael good, everybody else bad. You couldn't possibly be blind not to recognise that there are some really talented people in every party in Leinster House. And that's cool. So, but what he quoted me on was then that I had said that, could I work with them? Of course I can work with them.
In committees?
Because I do every week. I sit with Angus O'Snuddick at a whip meeting, and he's very kind and generous to me, giving whips or giving me pairs. I work with him on a weekly basis. We're in the Dáil Reform Committee together. We're in the Committee for Procedure. That's what we do. Yeah. You know, you don't go into Leinster House and you leave some of your baggage outside the door and you just get on and do your work.
So were you mortified when you... Did you know that was coming down the tracks?
I was fuming. Yeah. And it's not a case of... Like, there's other times when I can be a real donkey and say the wrong thing. Like, because I do genuinely have... If you ask me a question, I'll give you the answer, right? I'm not going to sit here and pause and think, oh, well, what should the right thing to be say? Sometimes my brain and the mouth doesn't engage, but the truth comes out, right? So that's just me. I'm not going to change the way I am. I was really raging because, particularly for Fine Gaelers, I mean, we are so diametrically opposed from a policy perspective to what Sinn Féin are, but genuinely, there is so much baggage that Sinn Féin have to deal with regard to legacy issues. And for me personally, to say that I made an offer of, like, it's just plain wrong. And it's not, like, OK, I'm damaged by it and that's fine. I'll have to pedal twice as fast to try and regain credibility in that area. But it's not true, and it's not going to happen. And that's not to be disrespectful to the people I do admire within Sinn Féin. There's just so much water between my party that
And
I'm
Sinn Féin.
incredibly proud of, and Sinn Féin, that it's not a runner.
OK, the pylon issue.
Yeah. Now, that's different, and that wasn't a controversy,
so
that's real life.
On Board Pleanála have given Airgrid permission to build pylons through your constituency.
Yeah.
And you and your constituents would prefer if the cables went underground.
Yeah.
Where is it at now?
It's no different than it was before Christmas. So they got their planning permission at the 21st of December. For what it's worth, I don't think the line will ever be built because the access, and I think it's bizarre actually that they got planning permission, but they want to build over 135 kilometres and they have less than 10% permission to go on the land of that 135 kilometres. And so we're now going to head into, I'd say,
but it is a good
years.
thing that we will be connected with the North of Ireland to share electricity.
Yeah,
right?
but we're already connected with the North of Ireland. We already have an interconnector. So to have a second interconnector, of course it's a good thing. We have an interconnector with England. There's one that goes to Wales. Like, the sharing and the security of the grid is a good thing, and that's what Airgrid are supposed to do, is to provide a robust, stable mechanism of providing electricity.
They have permission now to build pylons through your constituency.
They do.
Yeah. And you have said to the Irish Times, it's the principle is more important than the job.
Yeah. Again, the question that was asked me was this a red line issue for me sitting in Cabinet? Yeah, well, first of all, it's never going to come back to Cabinet because the decision has already been made. So what I have to do is that I've spent the last 10 years trying to convince Airgrid that they were wrong, which didn't work, obviously. And now I have to try and convince Denis Naughton, given the advances in technology...
Who's the minister in charge.
Sorry, he's the minister in the Department of Communications. But given the advances in technology and given the real resistance of the families along this route who are not going to let Airgrid on their land, can we not just find a way to do it together in cooperation? Like, the biggest issue I have is that had Airgrid treated the people in Meath, Cavan and Monaghan with the respect that I believe that they deserved, on the basis that this is a state agency that's there to serve the people, not to force something on them that we don't want or that they're afraid of or that they think that might cause harm to their health and definitely undervalue their properties, but do it in conjunction with people. Like, look at what happened with Grid West and Grid Link. They found compromises. They put cables on poles that were already there. They found a way to work with them.
But they have permission now to build the pylons, and that might happen in the future. And your constituents aren't going to be too happy with that.
No.
They're going to probably be involved in some sort of civil disobedience. And would you support them on that?
Well, again, the word
Would you support them on that?
Well, I do. I very much do support the landowners and the farmers that live along there, because they do not want this on their land. And what will happen for the next number of years, if it ever gets resolved, is that, so you're a landowner, you own the field and we want to put a pile on your field. You'll get a nice letter from Airgrid to say, we're going to rock up to your house next Tuesday at 2 o'clock. Would you be there and open the gates for us? And so obviously they'll arrive. You're not going to be there. You won't open your gates and they'll have to go away. That's costing money, first of all. Then they'll go away and they'll try and renegotiate with you and offer you a few bob more than they offered you last week, and you'll still say no. And then they'll send you a second letter, probably once a year.
Then it gets legal,
well,
eventually.
Do you know what? And I mean this sincerely, and I hope I'm not being smart. There are 90% of the landowners, and I genuinely do not see or wish any ill to Airgrid to have to go and take every single one of them to court to try and get access to the land, when all they had to do was to sit down and to genuinely treat them with respect, to have a look at the underground option, the overground option, and put both to An Bord Pleanála and let An Bord Pleanála make an informed decision that they refuse to do.
And you will support them.
Absolutely.
Now, how do you feel about Enda Kenny and the job he's doing as Taoiseach?
I've spent the last 5 years in the last Dáil taking every opportunity that I could get, be it on the late debate or Vincent Brand or whatever, trying to go out and defend Fine Gael and defend Enda Kenny, when there are a lot of detractors, obviously, that wouldn't be pleased with him or probably like him. It was a really easy thing for me to do because I have huge respect and admire him. But actually, in the last kind of 7 or 8 months, and that was having not a really good, strong personal relationship with him, because there was 100 and something of us, right? And so life was busy. I now get to see him every day, like up front, right here.
Okay.
He's deadly.
Question of the week: do you think he should go to the White House with a big bowl of shamrock?
Yeah,
yes.
absolutely.
Okay.
And it's not about the shamrock.
Yeah.
Like, look at the amount of...
we know it's not about the shamrock.
Okay.
We know
but we have to keep the relations, and there's 50,000 Irish people there that need to see that we give a hoot about them, and that we'll show up and
long
stand
after
up
Donald Trump and Enda Kenny are gone, we still have to have relationships with the United States of America. Now, Leo, Simon and Francis, which of the three contenders?
Pascal, Simon Jr.
Sorry.
Maybe somebody who hasn't
So which of them
stuck
wants
their
it the
neck out.
most, do you think? The leadership of Fine Gael?
I think they all want it. Actually, that's the nice thing about Fine Gael at the moment, is that I'll say this and somebody else will cut the legs off me because I wasn't around forever, but we have a huge amount of young, smart...
Do you want to be Taoiseach?
Yeah, absolutely. Not now, obviously, right? But maybe in
Does
about 10 years.
everybody who gets into politics ultimately want to be
But sure,
teaching?
you get into politics to try and change something. Like for me, it was special education because of my roots. But everybody wants to try and change something. But you can't change it if you don't have the
Power.
hands on the
It's
steering
all about
wheel.
power.
So, yeah.
Well, listen, thanks for coming in and being so honest with us. Regina Doherty, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks, Regina. Thank you.